There is a brutal truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. No one is coming to save you. No perfect moment is coming, no surge of motivation is guaranteed, no sudden wave of clarity will descend from the sky and push you into greatness. You either move, or you remain exactly where you are. The difference between those who build powerful lives and those who stay trapped is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is not background, talent, or opportunity. It is action. Relentless action. Most people wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for fear to disappear. They wait for certainty. And while they wait, time moves. Days pass. Months pass. Years pass. Dreams do not die dramatically. They decay quietly. They weaken under delay. They suffocate under hesitation. They dissolve under comfort. The weak mindset negotiates with discomfort. It seeks emotional relief. It searches for reassurance before movement. It needs the right mood. It needs approval. It needs perfect conditions. The strong mindset does not ask for permission. It moves. It acts while uncertain. It acts while uncomfortable. It acts while afraid. That is the dividing line. Most people are addicted to the feeling of planning. They confuse thinking with progress. They confuse intention with execution. They live in preparation mode. They consume information. They build elaborate systems. They promise themselves tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. Next year becomes regret. The cost of delay is invisible at first. It feels harmless. It feels safe. But every day you do not act, your identity weakens. Every broken promise to yourself chips away at self-trust. Every excuse strengthens hesitation. Action is not just something you do. Action is who you become. This audiobook is not designed to entertain you. It is not designed to comfort you. It is not designed to inspire you for a few hours. It is designed to condition you. It is designed to rewire how you respond to resistance. It is designed to eliminate negotiation. It is designed to build mental authority over your own behavior. You will learn how to move when you do not feel like moving. You will learn how to act when fear is loud. You will learn how to override delay. You will learn how to build discipline that does not depend on emotion. This is not about motivation. This is about identity. You will not finish this the same person who started it, if you choose to apply it. And that word matters. Choose. Because action is not automatic. Discipline is not accidental. Strength is not inherited. It is built. If you are ready to stop negotiating with your potential, if you are ready to stop waiting for permission, if you are ready to take control of your actions instead of being controlled by your moods, then stay locked in. Commit to this process. Commit to this conditioning. Commit to change. And if you are serious about building mental strength and self-mastery, like this channel and subscribe now. Make a decision to surround yourself with standards that demand growth. Now prepare yourself. Chapter 1 begins with the truth most people run from. Chapter 1. Accept total responsibility. Action is your responsibility. No one else carries it. No one else owes it to you. No one else can execute on your behalf. Your goals, your standards, your future, they all respond to one thing. Your movement. Most people wait. They wait for support. They wait for encouragement. They wait for the right conditions. They blame timing. They blame their past. They blame lack of resources. They blame other people. They give their power away in small, subtle ways. They say, when things calm down. They say, when I feel more confident. They say, when I have more time. This is the psychology of delay. Delay feels intelligent. It feels cautious. It feels responsible. But delay is rarely strategic. It is emotional protection disguised as logic. It is fear wearing a reasonable mask. Waiting kills dreams quietly. It does not explode them. It erodes them. Every time you postpone action, you strengthen hesitation. Every time you choose comfort over effort, you reinforce a dangerous identity, the identity of someone who waits. Comfort becomes a silent trap. It feels safe. It feels familiar. It feels controlled. But comfort expands. It grows roots. It builds walls. And before you realize it, your potential is locked behind routine, distraction, and rationalization. The weak mindset prioritizes emotional ease. The strong mindset prioritizes execution. The weak mindset asks, "How do I feel about doing this?" The strong mindset asks, "What must be done?" That is the shift. From someday to today. From intention to action. From comfort to growth. If you do not take responsibility for movement, you will unconsciously wait for rescue. You will wait for validation. You will wait for momentum to magically appear. It will not. Life does not reward waiting. It rewards execution. If you refuse responsibility, consequences do not disappear. They accumulate. Missed opportunities compound. Skills stagnate. Confidence erodes. Self-respect declines. Weakness compounds quietly. You do not wake up one day and realize you failed because of one big mistake. You wake up and realize you failed because of thousands of small delays. Thousands of small decisions not to move. The disciplined individual understands something most people avoid. No one is coming. Not to push you. Not to discipline you. Not to force you into your potential. You must do it. That realization is not depressing. It is empowering. Because if no one else controls your action, then no one else limits it either. The moment you accept total responsibility, excuses lose oxygen. You stop saying, "I don't have time," and start saying, "I did not prioritize it." You stop saying, "I wasn't ready," and start saying, "I chose not to move." That shift is power. Tactical control begins with ownership. Each morning, you decide one critical action that moves your life forward. Not 10. 1. And you complete it before your day ends. No negotiation. No emotional debate. It gets done. You eliminate the language of delay. You replace later with now. You replace someday with today. You replace I hope with I execute. You track what you finish, not what you plan. You measure yourself by action, not intention. When resistance appears, and it will, you do not analyze it endlessly. You do not entertain it. You acknowledge it and move anyway. That is control. You do not wait for perfect circumstances. You act within imperfect ones. You do not demand certainty. You create momentum. Over time, this builds something powerful. Self-trust. When you consistently execute, you begin to believe yourself. When you say you will act and you follow through, your identity strengthens. Your standards rise. Your confidence becomes internal. That's what strong people do. They do not outsource responsibility. They do not blame. They do not wait for rescue. They decide. That becomes who you are. You become the type of person who acts because it is your duty to yourself. You become someone who does not need applause to move. You become someone who does not need perfect mood to execute. That is the difference. Weak individuals wait for energy. Strong individuals create energy through movement. Weak individuals hope for change. Strong individuals produce change through action. You must understand this deeply. Action is not optional. It is required. If you want growth, you act. If you want confidence, you act. If you want results, you act. No one else will carry that burden. Accept it. Own it. Repeat it. Your future responds only to movement. Decide now that you are done waiting. Decide now that you are done negotiating. Decide now that action is your responsibility. And move. Chapter 2. Understand your inaction. Inaction is emotional, not logical. You do not fail to act because you lack intelligence. You do not fail to act because you lack information. You fail to act because something inside you is protecting comfort. That is the core principle. Every delay has an emotional root. Every excuse has a feeling behind it. Every unfinished goal is connected to fear, avoidance, or addiction to ease. Most people analyze their goals logically. They tell themselves they need a better plan. More time. More preparation. More certainty. That is surface-level thinking. Underneath, there is fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being exposed. Fear of looking incompetent. Fear of trying and discovering limits. And there is something more dangerous. Fear of success. Success demands visibility. It demands responsibility. It demands consistency. It demands growth. And growth requires discomfort. The weak mindset avoids both extremes. It avoids failure and it avoids expansion. It chooses safety in the middle. It chooses average. It chooses familiar struggle over unfamiliar growth. The disciplined mindset sees fear and moves anyway. That is the difference. Perfectionism is another disguise of fear. It appears noble. It appears high standard. But underneath, it is hesitation. It is delay dressed up as excellence. I need more time. It's not ready yet. It could be better. These phrases sound responsible. They feel productive. But they are often shields. They protect the ego from judgment. They protect the identity from risk. Meanwhile, time keeps moving. Emotional avoidance is subtle. You tell yourself you will start after you feel better. After you feel energized. After you feel confident. You are waiting for a feeling that only action creates. Most people do not struggle with discipline. They struggle with discomfort tolerance. They cannot sit with anxiety. They cannot sit with uncertainty. They cannot sit with the tension of effort. So they escape. Distraction becomes medication. Endless scrolling. Mindless consumption. Small hits of dopamine. Quick relief. The brain becomes addicted to easy reward. Immediate stimulation replaces meaningful progress. Every time you choose distraction over effort, you train your brain to avoid resistance. You strengthen the habit of escape. You reinforce weakness. The disciplined individual sees distraction as a threat. Not because it is evil, but because it is comfortable. Comfort delays action. Comfort softens standards. Comfort erodes urgency. If you do not understand the emotional roots of your inaction, you will continue fighting the wrong battle. You will keep trying to improve your strategy while ignoring your psychology. Action is not blocked by logic. It is blocked by emotion. Fear whispers that you are not ready. Perfectionism whispers that it is not time. Distraction whispers that you deserve a break. Comfort whispers that tomorrow is fine. And you listen. That listening is the problem. The disciplined person does not silence fear. They override it. They feel it. They recognize it. They move anyway. When fear of failure appears, they accept that failure is feedback. When fear of success appears, they accept that responsibility is growth. When perfectionism appears, they accept that progress beats delay. When emotional avoidance appears, they accept that discomfort is temporary. They do not wait for feelings to change. They change behavior first. If you do not correct this, the consequences compound quietly. You will keep setting goals you do not execute. You will keep building plans you do not follow. You will keep disappointing yourself in small ways. And every broken promise weakens identity. Self-trust declines. Confidence erodes. Standards drop. You begin to see yourself as someone who intends, but does not finish. Someone who talks, but does not execute. Someone who dreams, but does not move. That identity becomes heavy. And the heavier it becomes, the harder it is to act. This is how weakness compounds. The solution is not to eliminate emotion. The solution is to dominate response. When you feel fear, you act. When you feel doubt, you act. When you feel resistance, you act. You build a rule. Emotion does not decide behavior. That rule must become automatic. The next time you hesitate, do not analyze the task. Analyze the emotion. Ask yourself what you are avoiding. Name it. Expose it. Strip it of disguise. Then move. Do not debate with it. Do not soothe it. Do not negotiate with it. Move. You train your brain through repetition. Every time you act despite emotion, you weaken avoidance. Every time you override distraction, you strengthen authority. Every time you execute while uncomfortable, you reinforce identity. That becomes who you are. You become someone who feels fear and moves. You become someone who feels doubt and executes. You become someone who does not wait for perfect conditions. That is strength. That is maturity. That is control. Strong people are not fearless. They are decisive. Winners are not emotionless. They are disciplined. They do not eliminate resistance. They outwork it. That is the difference. From this point forward, stop asking why you are not motivated. Start asking what emotion you are protecting. Expose it. Face it. Override it. Inaction is emotional, and you control your response. Take ownership of that truth. Act anyway. Chapter 3. Stop negotiating with yourself. Discipline begins the moment negotiation ends. Every time you hesitate, you are bargaining with weakness. Every time you delay, you are making a deal with comfort. Every time you say later, you are choosing the lower version of yourself. The mind is skilled at persuasion. It whispers reasonable excuses. It offers soft compromises. It says you deserve a break. It says tomorrow will be better. It says one delay will not matter. That is the trap. Most people believe their internal dialogue is harmless. They treat self-negotiation as normal. They wake up and debate whether to act. They argue with themselves about effort. They weigh comfort against commitment. They think that is freedom. It is not freedom. It is weakness disguised as choice. Strong individuals do not debate action. They decide once. They remove discussion. They eliminate emotional voting. When the time comes to move, they move. That is the difference. The weak mindset asks, "Do I feel like it?" The disciplined mindset says, "It is time." The weak mindset looks for reasons to delay. The disciplined mindset looks for reasons to execute. Every negotiation drains authority. Every internal argument reduces clarity. Every maybe later strengthens resistance. You do not lose discipline in one dramatic collapse. You lose it in small permissions. Small exceptions. Small delays. I'll start tomorrow. I'll just scroll for a few minutes. I'll begin when I feel more focused. This is the bargaining trap. You tell yourself that delay is strategic. That rest is preparation. That waiting is planning. But if you are honest, you know the truth. You are postponing discomfort. And every postponement compounds. The longer you negotiate, the harder action becomes. Resistance grows stronger when you entertain it. Excuses gain confidence when you listen to them. Hesitation builds momentum. So does action. You must decide which momentum you are building. Motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls without warning. If you depend on motivation, your output will be unstable. Your progress will be inconsistent. Your identity will remain fragile. Strong people do not depend on motivation. They depend on standards. When you create a non-negotiable standard, you eliminate debate. When it is time to work, you work. When it is time to train, you train. When it is time to build, you build. No emotional vote, and no internal committee, no excuses. Decide once. That is the principle. Decide once what kind of person you are. Decide once that when the alarm goes off, you rise. Decide once that when a task is scheduled, it is executed. Decide once that discomfort does not get a say. Most people decide daily. That is their mistake. Every day becomes a new courtroom. Every morning becomes a new negotiation. Every task becomes a new discussion. You are exhausting yourself with unnecessary decisions. Eliminate them. Create rules. Follow them. Remove emotion from execution. You brush your teeth without debate. You put on clothes without argument. You do not hold a motivational speech before basic hygiene. Why? Because it is decided. Your goals must become that automatic. If you say you will write for 1 hour, then write for 1 hour. If you say you will train for 40 minutes, then train for 40 minutes. Not because you feel inspired. Not because you feel ready. Because you said you would. Keeping promises to yourself is not optional. It is identity construction. Every time you follow through, you reinforce authority. Every time you break your word, you weaken it. Self-trust is built or destroyed in private moments. No one sees your negotiations. No one hears your excuses. But you do. And your mind keeps score. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, your mind stops taking you seriously. Your commands lose power. Your intentions lose weight. Your confidence erodes. Then you wonder why you cannot force yourself to act. It is because you have trained yourself not to listen. Training your brain to obey starts with immediate compliance. When you give yourself a command, execute it. Immediately. Not after checking your phone. Not after a mental debate. Immediately. Action before analysis. Movement before emotion. The longer you wait, the louder resistance becomes. The faster you move, the weaker it feels. This is not about being harsh. It is about being clear. You are either in control of your behavior, or your moods are. You are either the authority, or the negotiator. Strong people do not negotiate with weakness. They override it. They move through it. They outpace it. They understand that discipline is not built in grand gestures. It is built in micro moments of obedience. Wake up when you said you would. Start when you plan to start. Stop when you plan to stop. Precision builds power. The mind respects consistency. When you repeatedly execute without debate, your internal resistance decreases. It learns that excuses will not be entertained. It learns that commands are followed. That becomes your identity. You become someone who acts without negotiation. That is what strong people do. That is how winners think. That becomes who you are. No more "I'll start tomorrow." No more internal bargaining, and no more emotional delays. The standard is execution. The rule is obedience. The moment you feel the urge to negotiate, that is your signal. That is the moment to act. Not later. Not after a break. Now. You end negotiation by refusing to engage. You do not argue with excuses. You do not analyze them. You do not justify them. You move. Short command. Immediate execution. That is discipline. And discipline is freedom. Because when you eliminate negotiation, you eliminate chaos. When you eliminate debate, you eliminate hesitation. When you eliminate excuses, you eliminate stagnation. From this moment forward, there is no discussion. When it is time to act, you act. No bargaining, no postponing, no permission seeking. Decide once. Execute daily. Become the authority over your own behavior. That is the line. Cross it. Chapter 4. Move immediately. Action begins in the body. Hesitation is the birthplace of resistance. The moment you pause, your mind starts negotiating. The moment you delay, your emotions begin constructing arguments. The longer you sit still, the stronger the resistance becomes. Movement kills overthinking. Most people hesitate. They feel the impulse to act, but they wait. They sit with the discomfort. They analyze it. They question it. They give it space to grow. In that space, resistance multiplies. A simple task becomes heavy. A small action becomes overwhelming. A decision becomes complicated. Weak minds hesitate and then search for comfort. They scroll. They distract. They rationalize. They promise later. They surrender to the feeling of not wanting to begin. Strong minds move before emotion catches up. They do not allow resistance to gain momentum. They interrupt it with motion. They do not debate the task. They initiate it. They shift from thinking to doing in seconds. That is the difference. When you hesitate, you strengthen avoidance. When you move immediately, you strengthen authority. Delay is not neutral. It is training. Every time you wait, you train your brain to associate action with difficulty. You condition yourself to stall. You build the habit of resistance. And habits compound. If you continue hesitating, your standards decline. Your confidence erodes. You stop trusting your own commands. You begin to see yourself as someone who thinks but does not execute. That identity is dangerous. Because once you believe you are inconsistent, you act inconsistently. Once you see yourself as hesitant, you hesitate automatically. Weakness compounds quietly. You must interrupt it. The rule is simple. When you know you should do something, count down from 5 and move. Do not analyze. Do not prepare. Do not wait for readiness. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move. Stand up. Open the document. Make the call. Step into the gym. Start the first sentence. Physical motion overrides emotional resistance. Your body can act before your feelings agree. And once you are in motion, resistance weakens. You are not waiting for emotion to approve action. You are commanding action regardless of emotion. This is how you train obedience. Your brain learns that when a command is issued, movement follows. No negotiation. No delay. No emotional consultation. You give yourself an instruction. You move. The more you practice this, the less power hesitation holds. You shrink the gap between decision and execution. That gap is where weakness lives. That gap is where excuses are born. Eliminate the gap. Most people live in that gap. They decide to wake up early, then snooze. They decide to eat clean, then indulge. They decide to work, then procrastinate. Their decisions are disconnected from their actions. You close that gap with immediate movement. When the alarm sounds, sit up instantly. When it is time to train, change your clothes immediately. When it is time to focus, remove distractions instantly. Do not give your mind room to bargain. Hesitation strengthens fear. Hesitation strengthens doubt. Hesitation strengthens laziness. Immediate movement weakens all three. You are not trying to feel ready. You are trying to become decisive. Decisiveness is a physical skill before it is a mental one. You condition it through repetition. You teach your nervous system that action follows thought. Every time. 5 seconds. Then move. That becomes your standard. And understand this clearly, you will feel resistance. You will feel the pull to delay. That is not a sign to stop. That is the exact moment to act. Resistance is a trigger. When you feel it, that is your cue. Move faster. This is how strong people operate. They do not sit inside discomfort analyzing it. They break it with action. They create momentum before doubt has time to expand. They trust motion. You must do the same. Your body is more powerful than your hesitation. When you stand up, your state changes. When you take a step forward, your physiology shifts. When you begin, even imperfectly, your mind starts aligning with the movement. Action creates alignment. The hardest part of any task is starting. Once started, the barrier collapses. Energy follows engagement. Focus follows motion. But you will never reach that state if you remain still. Stillness breeds excuses. Movement breeds progress. That is the law. You are not fragile. You are not incapable. You are not waiting for courage to appear. You create courage through movement. Every time you act within 5 seconds, you strengthen your identity as someone who executes. Every time you override hesitation, you reinforce authority over yourself. That becomes who you are. You become decisive. You become responsive. You become dangerous to delay. That is how winners think. They shorten the distance between thought and action. They remove drama. They remove emotion from the equation. They build a reflex for execution. You are building that reflex now. Say it internally, when I decide, I move. Not later. Not after I feel better. Not when conditions improve. Now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move. That repetition is not a trick. It is conditioning. And conditioning builds identity. You are not someone who hesitates. You are not someone who negotiates. You are someone who moves. That is the difference. Close the gap. Act immediately. Train obedience to your own commands. Movement kills overthinking. And from this moment forward, you move first. Chapter 5. Shrink the task until it's impossible to avoid. The size of the task is not the problem. Your perception of the task is. Overwhelm is not about workload. It is about intimidation. It is about mental exaggeration. It is about turning a single step into a mountain before you ever move. Big goals scare weak minds. Disciplined minds break them down. Most people look at the entire staircase and freeze. They stare at the top floor. They calculate how long it will take. They imagine how tired they will feel. They anticipate discomfort before it arrives. So they delay. They say it is too much. They say they need more time. They say they will start when they have more energy. But the truth is simple. They are trying to swallow the whole future in one bite. Strong people do not do that. Strong people reduce the mission to one movement, one call, one paragraph, one push-up, one page, 1 minute. That is it. The mind resists what feels heavy. It resists what feels endless. It resists what feels complicated. When the task looks large, resistance grows larger. When the task looks small, resistance shrinks. That is control. Most people sabotage themselves by setting standards that are emotionally intimidating. They demand 2 hours of perfect focus. They demand flawless execution. They demand massive output on day 1. Then they fail to start. Not because they are incapable. Because they are overwhelmed. Overwhelm kills action before it begins. The disciplined mind understands something powerful. Momentum matters more than magnitude. The first step does not need to be impressive. It needs to exist. Shrink the task until it becomes almost laughably small. If you cannot work out for an hour, do 1 minute. If you cannot write 10 pages, write 1 sentence. If you cannot clean the entire room, clean 1 corner. If you cannot study for 2 hours, open the book and read 1 paragraph. You are not lowering standards. You are eliminating resistance. Once you begin, something shifts. Motion creates clarity. Movement reduces friction. Action generates energy. Starting is the hard part. Continuing becomes easier. Most people wait for motivation to feel strong enough for the full task. That is backward thinking. Motivation grows after movement, not before it. The 2-minute start method is simple and ruthless. Commit to 2 minutes. Nothing more. 2 minutes of movement. 2 minutes of writing. 2 minutes of organizing. 2 minutes of effort. Anyone can endure 2 minutes. And once you begin, stopping becomes harder than continuing. That is how you beat procrastination. You do not overpower it with emotion. You bypass it with smallness. You reduce the task to something your brain cannot justify avoiding. There is no excuse for 2 minutes. There is no negotiation for 1 small action. This builds trust. Every time you start, even small, you reinforce something deeper. You prove to yourself that you move. Self-trust compounds. Weakness compounds too. When you repeatedly avoid tasks because they seem big, you train your mind to associate challenge with retreat. You condition hesitation. You reinforce avoidance. That pattern becomes identity. I am someone who delays. But when you shrink tasks and execute daily, you create a new pattern. I am someone who starts. That identity changes everything. Micro-commitments are powerful because they are sustainable. You do not need emotional intensity to complete a small action. You do not need perfect focus. You do not need ideal conditions. You need willingness. Small wins build internal momentum. They stack. They accumulate. They create proof. Proof builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency builds results. It begins with something tiny. Do not underestimate the power of small beginnings. Do not dismiss them as insignificant. That is how weak minds think. They crave dramatic effort. They crave visible intensity. Strong minds understand compounding. They understand that 10 small actions repeated daily are stronger than 1 heroic effort once a month. Shrink it. Then execute it. When you feel resistance rising, do not argue with it. Do not analyze it. Do not try to eliminate it. Reduce the task. Make it so small that avoidance feels ridiculous. 1 email. 1 repetition. 1 note. 1 outline. 1 step. Then another. Momentum is not created by massive bursts. It is created by continuous initiation. The person who masters starting masters progress. And that becomes who you are. You become the type of person who does not freeze at the size of ambition. You become someone who slices goals into manageable actions and executes them without drama. That is what strong people do. They do not wait to feel capable of the entire journey. They focus on the next movement. They control the present. They ignore the intimidation of the distant outcome. They win 1 step at a time. Overwhelm disappears when action begins. Doubt weakens when movement starts. Anxiety reduces when the first task is complete. Small action defeats large fear. You must condition yourself to respond to intimidation with reduction, not retreat. When something feels too big, your response is not avoidance. Your response is this. Shrink it. Start it. Finish it. Repeat. No theatrics, no negotiation, no overthinking. Just movement. That is discipline. That is power. And when you live this way long enough, you no longer see tasks as threats. You see them as sequences. You see them as manageable. You see them as controllable. That becomes your standard. You do not say, "This is too much." You say, "What is the smallest step?" That question changes everything. Ask it daily. Answer it immediately. Execute without hesitation. Start smaller than you think. And do not stop. Chapter 6. Rewire your identity. Become someone who acts. Action follows identity. That is the principle. You do not consistently do what you want. You consistently do what you believe you are. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you will behave inconsistently. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you will break your own rules. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with motivation, you will constantly wait for it. Behavior always aligns with self-image. Most people try to change actions without changing identity. They chase goals while holding onto a weak internal story. They say they want results, but internally they still identify as procrastinators, overthinkers, quitters, or people who need to feel ready. They are trying to build strength on top of a weak foundation. Strong individuals reverse the order. They change identity first. They decide who they are. They say, "I am the type of person who executes. I am the type of person who finishes. I am the type of person who moves immediately." And then they act accordingly. The average person asks, "Do I feel like doing this?" The disciplined person asks, "What would someone like me do right now?" That is the difference. If you continue to identify as someone who struggles, delays, hesitates, and negotiates, you will keep reinforcing that pattern. Every delay becomes evidence. Every excuse becomes proof. Every incomplete task strengthens the story. Identity compounds. Weak identity creates weak behavior. Weak behavior reinforces weak identity. It becomes a cycle. And if you do not interrupt it, it will define your life. Look at your patterns. When something becomes difficult, do you immediately search for escape? Do you look for distraction? Do you tell yourself you work better under pressure later? Do you protect comfort instead of progress? That is identity in action. If you do not consciously choose who you are becoming, you will unconsciously become whoever your habits shape you into. You must take control of that process. You must deliberately construct a new identity. Not based on hope. Not based on potential. Based on standards. Say it internally with authority. I am disciplined. I act immediately. I finish what I start. I keep promises to myself. Do not wait to feel like that person. Act like that person first. Identity is built through evidence. Every time you move without hesitation, you deposit proof. Every time you start when you do not feel like starting, you strengthen the new story. Every time you finish what you said you would finish, you build self-trust. Self-trust is power. When you trust yourself, action becomes automatic. You do not debate. You do not bargain. You do not need external validation. You act because that is who you are. Most people want confidence before action. Wrong order. Confidence is the byproduct of repeated aligned behavior. You do not wake up confident. You build confidence by proving to yourself that you execute. And you prove that by acting consistently, especially when it is uncomfortable. The weak mindset waits for identity to feel real before acting. The strong mindset acts until identity becomes real. That is how you rewire yourself. You must also eliminate identity statements that weaken you. Stop saying, "I'm not disciplined." Stop saying, "I always procrastinate." Stop saying, "That's just how I am." That is self-conditioning. Every label you repeat becomes an instruction. Replace them. I move immediately. I handle hard things. I do what needs to be done. I control my behavior. At first, it may feel forced. Good. That means you are interrupting old patterns. Continue. Repetition builds belief. Belief builds behavior. Behavior builds identity. And identity builds destiny. You must also align your daily actions with your future self. Picture the strongest version of you. The version who executes without hesitation. The version who wakes up and moves. The version who trains, builds, produces, and finishes. Ask one question consistently. What would that version of me do right now? Then do that. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels convenient. Now. This is not about pretending. It is about practicing. You practice becoming disciplined by acting disciplined. You practice being focused by choosing focus. You practice being relentless by refusing to stop when resistance appears. And slowly, subtly, permanently, you change. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to improve. You see yourself as someone who executes. That shift changes everything. When action becomes part of your identity, you no longer need to force it with constant internal battles. You still feel resistance. You still feel discomfort. But you do not debate it. You override it. Because that is what strong people do. They do not identify as victims of mood. They do not identify as slaves to comfort. They do not identify as fragile. They identify as capable, responsible, controlled. And so they behave that way. This is the turning point. You are not building goals. You are building a self-image. You are not chasing outcomes. You are constructing a standard. From this point forward, stop asking whether you feel like acting. Start asking who you are becoming. Are you becoming someone who moves immediately? Or someone who negotiates endlessly? Are you becoming someone who finishes? Or someone who starts and stops? Decide. Choose deliberately. Because once you define your identity with conviction, action stops being a struggle. It becomes alignment. That's what strong people do, that's how winners think. That becomes who you are. Rewire your identity. Become someone who acts. Now carry that identity into the next chapter, where comfort will no longer be free. Chapter 7. Make an action expensive. Comfort is the enemy when it costs nothing. If an action feels safe, easy, and consequence-free, you will remain still. If delay carries no price, you will continue to delay. Human behavior follows tension. When comfort is rewarded, weakness grows. When discomfort is avoided, growth dies. This is the principle. If comfort is free, you will not move. Most people design lives where procrastination has no immediate penalty. They skip workouts with no consequence. They delay projects with no consequence. They break promises to themselves with no consequence. They allow excuses to pass unchallenged. They drift because drifting does not hurt enough. Disciplined individuals reverse this equation. They make inaction painful. They create stakes. They attach cost to delay. They do not allow themselves to break standards without friction. They understand that the brain avoids pain and seeks pleasure. So they redesign the system. Weak minds protect comfort. Strong minds weaponize discomfort. Look closely at your own behavior. Where are you too comfortable? Where are you too safe? Where are you allowed to underperform without feeling pressure? That is the area that is killing your momentum. When there is no tension, there is no movement. If you continue as you are, the consequences will not be dramatic at first. They will be subtle. You will feel small disappointments, quiet self-doubt, growing hesitation, lowered self-trust. Each broken commitment weakens your internal authority. And then one day, you will realize you no longer believe your own words. That is the real cost of inaction. You lose credibility with yourself. When you lose credibility with yourself, discipline collapses. Confidence disappears. Identity fragments. You begin to question your ability to execute. You hesitate before starting. You lower your standards to protect your ego. Weakness compounds. Every avoided task trains your brain to avoid again. Every excuse reinforces the habit of retreat. Every delay strengthens emotional dependency. If you do not interrupt this pattern, it will define you. So you must introduce cost. You must raise the stakes. You must make it uncomfortable to stay the same. Start with consequence visualization. Not vague fear. Not dramatic imagination. Specific, concrete outcomes. If you do not act on your goals for 1 year, what changes? Your finances remain stagnant. Your health declines. Your skills remain average. Your confidence erodes. Your options narrow. See it clearly. Do not soften it. Allow yourself to feel the weight of that future. Not to panic. Not to collapse. But to awaken urgency. That's what strong people do. Then introduce accountability. Public commitment changes behavior. When others know your standard, you feel pressure to uphold it. You protect your word. You protect your reputation. Announce deadlines. Declare intentions. Remove secrecy. Silence protects procrastination. Exposure strengthens discipline. Next, attach financial or tangible stakes. If you fail to complete a task, there must be loss. Not symbolic loss. Real loss. Money donated. Privileges removed. Access restricted. Remove comforts when standards are not met. Condition your environment to reject weakness. Do not rely on willpower alone. Design consequences. Set non-negotiables. Daily standards that cannot be skipped. If they are skipped, something must be sacrificed. Sleep time. Entertainment. Leisure. Comfort is earned, not granted. When your brain understands that inaction hurts, it recalibrates. Pain becomes a signal to move. This is not punishment. This is conditioning. You are training your nervous system to associate delay with discomfort. You are reprogramming yourself to act quickly. You are teaching your identity that standards are real. Weak people wait for consequences from the world. Strong people create consequences for themselves. That's the difference. The moment you make an action expensive, hesitation decreases. You no longer drift casually. You no longer postpone lightly. You feel internal pressure. You feel the weight of your own standards. Pressure builds performance. Raise the stakes high enough and your behavior changes. If comfort remains free, you will return to it. If consequences remain distant, you will ignore them. Bring the consequence closer. Make it immediate. Make it tangible. Do not threaten yourself with vague future regret. Create present cost. That becomes who you are. You become someone who respects your own standards. Someone who enforces discipline. Someone who does not tolerate weakness internally. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" You start declaring, "It must be done." And when it must be done, it gets done. Because your identity demands it. Repeat this truth until it embeds in your nervous system. Comfort is earned. Standards are enforced. Inaction is expensive. Comfort is earned. Standards are enforced. Inaction is expensive. That repetition is not for emphasis alone. It is for conditioning. The more you tolerate weakness, the stronger it becomes. The more you enforce standards, the stronger you become. That's what winners understand. They do not rely on fleeting emotion. They build structures that punish delay. They design lives that reward execution. They remove the option to drift. You must do the same. Raise the stakes. Increase the cost. Refuse to stay comfortable. You are not here to feel safe. You are here to build strength. Make an action painful enough that action becomes relief. That is how you break stagnation. That is how you reclaim control. That is how you separate yourself from the majority who remain stuck in soft comfort. Decide now. From this moment forward, delay has a price. Excuses have a cost. Standards are real. That is the mindset of someone who acts. Enforce it. Chapter 8. Design an environment that forces action. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. That is the principle. You do not rise to your intentions. You fall to your surroundings. If your environment invites distraction, you will be distracted. If it encourages delay, you will delay. If it makes comfort easy, you will choose comfort. Most people try to build discipline inside a chaotic environment. They rely on motivation while sitting in rooms filled with temptation. They attempt focus while notifications flash. They attempt productivity while their tools are disorganized and their space is cluttered. Then they blame themselves. They say they lack discipline. They say they lack drive. They say something is wrong with them. What is wrong is not them. What is wrong is the design. Weak individuals depend on feelings. Strong individuals engineer outcomes. The weak wake up and decide based on mood. The strong remove decisions before the day even begins. The weak fight distractions all day. The strong eliminate distractions before they fight. That is the difference. If your phone is within reach, you will reach for it. If your workspace is messy, your mind will be scattered. If entertainment is easier to access than your goals, you will choose entertainment. Environment is silent pressure. And right now, your environment is either strengthening you or weakening you. If you do not control it, it controls you. If you continue to rely on willpower alone, you will burn out. Willpower fluctuates. Environment remains. Every day you fail to design your surroundings, you increase friction for action. Every day you leave temptation within arm's reach, you make discipline harder than it needs to be. That weakness compounds. You lose momentum. You lose focus. You lose trust in yourself. Then the narrative begins. I'm just not consistent. I don't have enough discipline. I'll start fresh next week. No. You did not build a structure that supports execution. Execution requires systems. Not complicated systems. Not productivity tricks. Structure. Start with friction. Make distraction hard. Move your phone out of the room when you work. Disable notifications. Remove apps that steal hours from your day. Clear your desk. Keep only what serves your mission. Create a physical space that signals action. Your workspace must say one thing: work. Not scroll. Not relax. Not drift. Work. Prepare tomorrow the night before. Lay out what needs to be done. Keep tools ready. Remove barriers. Reduce the number of decisions required to start. Action must be easier than avoidance. That is the standard. Then build triggers. Tie your actions to anchors. Wake up and move immediately. Sit down and begin immediately. Do not wander. Do not drift. Do not browse. You do not need complex habit stacks. You need consistency. Same time. Same place. Same action. Repetition builds automaticity. Your environment must reduce choice. Too many options weaken execution. If you have multiple tasks competing for attention, you will freeze. Decide in advance what matters most. Make it obvious. Make it visible. Put your goals in front of you. Not hidden in a notebook. Not buried in your mind. Visible. What you see repeatedly influences what you do repeatedly. Now remove comfort from where it does not belong. Comfort should not dominate your work zone. It should not dominate your growth hours. Comfort is earned after execution. Separate spaces mentally and physically. One area for growth, one area for rest. Blur them, and you blur discipline. You must understand this. You are not weak for being influenced by your environment. You are human. But strong people accept that reality and design around it. They do not test their resistance daily. They reduce the need for resistance. That is intelligence. When your environment supports action, discipline feels lighter. Not easy. Lighter. When it supports distraction, discipline feels exhausting. You choose the weight you carry. Look around you. Is your environment pushing you toward the person you want to become? Or is it pulling you backward? If it pulls you backward, change it. Immediately. Do not overthink, do not analyze endlessly. Adjust. Remove one distraction today. Prepare one action trigger today. Clean one space today. Small environmental shifts produce massive behavioral change. And as your environment strengthens, your identity strengthens. You begin to see yourself as someone serious, someone structured, someone intentional. That becomes who you are. You stop relying on motivation. You start relying on design. That's what strong people do. They do not hope for focus. They build it. They do not pray for discipline. They structure it. They do not trust chance. They control variables. And when the environment supports execution, action becomes the default, not the exception. Design your space. Design your routines. Design your triggers. Remove friction for growth. Add friction for distraction. Do this daily. Refine it weekly. Protect it fiercely. Because discipline is easier in the right environment. And you are no longer someone who waits for strength. You build it. Control the environment. Control your actions. Control your future. Chapter 9. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a myth. No one feels fully prepared before they step into something that matters. No one feels completely confident before they take a risk that stretches them. No one feels certain before they move towards something bigger than their current identity. Waiting to feel ready is another form of delay. And delay is weakness disguised as caution. Most people believe there is a moment when everything aligns. When fear disappears. When clarity is perfect. When doubt is silent. When confidence is high. They believe readiness is a feeling. It is not. It is a decision. The weak mindset waits for emotional alignment. It waits until anxiety fades. It waits until confidence rises. It waits until it feels right. The strong mindset moves regardless of emotion. That is the difference. Weak people seek comfort before action. Strong people seek growth through action. Weak people want assurance before risk. Strong people understand that assurance is earned after repetition. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you will remain in the same place. Your ideas will stay ideas. Your goals will stay distant. Your potential will remain theoretical. Hesitation compounds. Every time you delay, you reinforce the identity of someone who waits. Every time you postpone, you teach your brain that discomfort wins. Every time you say, "not yet," you weaken your authority over your own life. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to move. Because waiting builds doubt. Doubt builds fear. Fear builds paralysis. Clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes from action. Confidence does not appear before repetition. Confidence is built through repetition. You do not think your way into readiness. You act your way into readiness. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence creates action. In reality, action creates confidence. When you do something once, it feels foreign. When you do it 10 times, it feels manageable. When you do it 100 times, it feels normal. Repetition transforms fear into familiarity. But you must begin. You must move before you feel ready. You must step before certainty. You must decide before comfort. That is how strong people operate. If you wait for perfect timing, you will wait forever. There is always a reason not to start. There is always a potential risk. There is always uncertainty. Strong individuals accept uncertainty as part of growth. Weak individuals treat uncertainty as a stop sign. You must reverse that pattern. Uncertainty is not a warning. It is a gateway. The discomfort you feel before action is not proof you are unprepared. It is proof you are stretching beyond your current limits. And growth always feels unstable at first. When you begin something new, your brain searches for safety. It looks for familiar ground. It tries to protect you from embarrassment, failure, rejection, or loss. But protection is not progress. Safety is not expansion. You are not here to stay safe. You are here to build strength. And strength is built in motion. The moment you notice yourself thinking, "I'm not ready," you must respond immediately. You say, "I move anyway." When you think, "What if I fail?" you respond, "I will learn." When you think, "I need more time," you respond, "I start now." You train your mind through repetition. You interrupt hesitation with command. You do not argue with your doubt. You override it. Take action before your emotions can build resistance. Make the call. Send the message. Begin the task. Show up early. Speak up. Submit the work. Not when you feel bold. Now. Action is a signal to your brain. It says, "I am in control." Every time you act despite uncertainty, you strengthen that signal. You increase self-trust. You increase authority. You increase internal power. Self-trust is built when you do what you said you would do, even when you do not feel like it. Readiness is not found. It is created. Created through movement. Created through repetition. Created through exposure. You do not wake up one day suddenly fearless. You wake up one day experienced. And experience dissolves fear. But experience requires action. Strong people do not obsess over how they feel before they move. They ask one question. What needs to be done? Then they do it. No ceremony, no overthinking, no emotional analysis. Execution. That becomes their standard. When you operate like this consistently, something shifts. You stop seeking perfect conditions. You stop needing validation. You stop waiting for inspiration. You build internal momentum. And momentum builds readiness faster than thought ever could. If you delay long enough, you will start believing the story that you are not capable, that you are not prepared, that you are not built for more. That story is a lie reinforced by inaction. Break it. Move before you believe. Move before you feel certain. Move before you feel confident. Because the feeling you are chasing only appears after the behavior. That is how winners think. They do not wait to feel strong. They act strong. They do not wait to feel disciplined. They behave disciplined. They do not wait to feel ready. They start. That becomes who they are. You must decide what type of person you will be. The one who waits, or the one who moves. Every time you hesitate, ask yourself, am I building the identity of someone who acts or someone who delays? That question alone will change your behavior. You do not need perfect timing. You need immediate movement. You do not need certainty. You need courage. You do not need readiness. You need decision. And decision is power. From this moment forward, remove the phrase, I'm not ready from your vocabulary. Replace it with, I begin. Say it again. I begin. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions improve. Now. That is the standard. That is the shift. That is how you separate yourself from the average. Stop waiting to feel ready. Move. Now. Chapter 10. Control your emotional resistance. Emotional resistance is the final wall between intention and execution. It is not laziness. It is not lack of knowledge. It is not lack of opportunity. It is your refusal to move when discomfort appears. Here is the truth. Every time you decide to act, your emotions will react. Fear will surface. Doubt will whisper. Fatigue will exaggerate itself. Your mind will search for relief. That is resistance. It is automatic. It is predictable. It is constant. Weak individuals obey it. Disciplined individuals override it. Most people interpret resistance as a sign to stop. They assume discomfort means they are not ready. They assume anxiety means something is wrong. They assume tension means wait. Strong individuals interpret resistance differently. They recognize it as a signal that growth is present. They understand that discomfort is not danger. It is expansion. It is friction before progress. It is the mind attempting to preserve comfort. Most people negotiate with their emotions. They say, I don't feel like it. They say, I'll do it when I'm in a better state. They say, today is not the day. That is weakness disguised as self-awareness. Feelings are temporary. Progress is permanent. If you do not master emotional resistance, it will master you. And when resistance masters you, your life shrinks. Your standards drop. Your confidence erodes. You begin to distrust yourself. You begin to hesitate before every meaningful action. You begin to build an identity of avoidance. Avoidance compounds. Each time you retreat from discomfort, your tolerance decreases. Tasks feel heavier. Decisions feel harder. Pressure feels unbearable. Your world becomes smaller because your emotional capacity is smaller. That is how weakness spreads. Quietly. Gradually. Repeatedly. You must build emotional endurance. Emotional endurance means acting while afraid. Acting while uncertain. Acting while unmotivated. Acting while tired. Acting while uncomfortable. Not recklessly. Not emotionally. But deliberately. The disciplined mind separates feelings from decisions. Your emotions can exist without controlling you. Anxiety can exist while you work. Doubt can exist while you execute. Fear can exist while you move forward. You do not need emotional comfort to take action. You need standards. Here is the rule: decisions are made once. Emotions are allowed to fluctuate without changing the decision. If you decided to train, you train. If you decided to build, you build. If you decided to write, you write. The emotion is irrelevant. The decision stands. This is how you reclaim authority over yourself. When resistance appears, do not analyze it. Do not explore it. Do not entertain it. Label it. Recognize it. Then move. Say internally, "This is resistance." Then act anyway. That simple separation creates power. You are not your feelings. You are the one observing them. You are the one choosing despite them. That distinction changes everything. Strong individuals expect resistance. They plan for it. They anticipate the moment motivation fades. They know the mind will search for relief. So they remove the option. When resistance rises, they shorten the gap between thought and action. They count down. They stand up. They begin. They move before the emotion strengthens. Speed weakens resistance. Delay feeds it. You must train this deliberately. Choose one task daily that creates mild discomfort. Complete it without hesitation. Do not wait for the perfect state. Do not adjust based on mood. Execute on command. This builds emotional muscle. Each time you override resistance, you strengthen authority. Each time you act despite discomfort, you build resilience. Each time you finish what you started, you expand your tolerance. Repetition builds mastery. At first, resistance feels intense. Over time, it becomes background noise. Eventually, it becomes irrelevant. That is conditioning. Weak people chase emotional ease. Strong people chase internal standards. Weak people seek relief. Strong people seek growth. Weak people avoid pressure. Strong people train under it. That is the difference. You are building a mind that does not collapse under discomfort. You are building a nervous system that remains steady when fear appears. You are building identity around action, not emotion. That becomes who you are. When resistance shows up, you do not panic. You do not retreat. You do not debate. You execute. Because feelings are temporary. Because progress is permanent. Because you decide who you are through action, not comfort. Control your emotional resistance. Do not negotiate with it, do not obey it, do not fear it. Override it. That is how strong people operate. That is how winners think. That is how discipline becomes identity. Now move. Chapter 11. Manufacture urgency and dominate time. Time expands for the undisciplined and contracts for the decisive. If there is no deadline, there is no intensity. If there is no pressure, there is no performance. Human nature drifts when time is open. It sharpens when time is restricted. That is the principle. When you give yourself unlimited time, you create unlimited delay. When you create urgency, you create focus. Most people treat time casually. They say they will do it later. They assume the day is long. They assume opportunity will wait. They assume energy will return. So they drift. They scroll. They hesitate. They postpone. Strong individuals compress time. They assign deadlines. They create pressure. They move with urgency even when no one is watching. That is the difference. Without urgency, distraction wins. Without urgency, perfectionism grows. Without urgency, resistance expands. The task stretches. The mind wanders. The standard drops. Time without structure breeds weakness. If you do not control time, time controls you. Every goal you have requires force applied within a time boundary. A decision without a deadline is a fantasy. An intention without urgency is an illusion. You must manufacture urgency. Do not wait for external pressure. Create it internally. Set a clear finish line. Set a visible clock. Set a non-negotiable completion time. Decide that this task will be done by this hour. Not eventually. Not when you feel ready. By this hour. When the clock starts, excuses stop. Pressure creates clarity. When you know time is limited, your mind eliminates distractions automatically. You focus on essentials. You cut unnecessary steps. You move directly toward completion. That is power. Weak individuals say they work better without pressure. That is self-deception. They work better when forced. They produce more when time is scarce. They think faster when stakes are higher. Strong individuals do not wait to be forced. They force themselves. They operate in sprints. A sprint is a period of focused execution without interruption. No distractions. No multitasking. No drifting. A defined window of intensity. During that window, you do one thing. You finish it. You do not check your phone. You do not open new tabs. You do not escape discomfort. You execute. Even 30 minutes of real urgency outperforms 3 hours of casual effort. Intensity beats duration. You must train yourself to move fast without panic. Speed with control. Urgency with precision. Start small. Choose a task. Set a strict deadline. Reduce the time you think you need. Begin immediately. Work until completion. Stop when finished. Do this daily. You are training your brain to associate time limits with performance, not stress. You are building internal pressure tolerance. You are strengthening focus. Over time, you will notice something powerful. You hesitate less. You decide faster. You act quicker. Your baseline speed increases. That is conditioning. The undisciplined mind wastes mornings. The disciplined mind attacks them. The undisciplined mind stretches tasks across days. The disciplined mind compresses them into hours. The undisciplined mind waits for urgency from outside. The disciplined mind generates urgency from within. That becomes who you are. There is no room for softness in time management. If a task matters, schedule it. If it is scheduled, complete it. If you miss the deadline, tighten the next one. Raise the standard. Deadlines are not suggestions. They are contracts with yourself. Every time you honor a deadline, you strengthen self-trust. Every time you ignore one, you weaken authority. Your confidence is tied to how seriously you treat your own timelines. Respect time, and you respect yourself. You must eliminate vague language from your thinking. Not soon. Not later. Not eventually. Replace it with exact hours. Exact days. Exact completion points. Clarity increases urgency. Urgency increases action. Action increases progress. That is the sequence. Pressure does not break strong people. It reveals them. It sharpens them. It refines them. When you learn to operate under self-imposed pressure, external pressure loses its power over you. Deadlines at work do not intimidate you. Competition does not rattle you. High stakes do not freeze you. You have trained for this. You built the muscle. You built the rhythm. You built the speed. Most people are controlled by time. They chase it. They complain about it. They feel behind. Strong individuals command time. They assign it. They compress it. They dominate it. That is the difference. From this point forward, you do not drift through days. You attack them. You define them. You close them with completion. Manufacture urgency. Set the clock. Begin immediately. Finish decisively. Pressure creates productivity. Deadlines create discipline. Urgency creates momentum. This is how winners operate. This is how strong people think. This is how you dominate time. Now move. Chapter 12. Build ruthless self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to execute without emotional permission. It is not talent. It is not personality. It is not genetics. It is trained behavior. Most people misunderstand discipline. They believe it is something you either have or you don't. They believe disciplined individuals wake up energized, focused, and naturally driven. That is false. Disciplined individuals wake up and act regardless of how they feel. That is the difference. Weak individuals rely on mood. They wait for inspiration. They require motivation. They depend on external pressure. When energy is high, they move. When energy is low, they stop. Strong individuals rely on standards. They define non-negotiables. They execute daily. They do not ask how they feel. They ask what must be done. And then they do it. If you do not build ruthless self-discipline, your life will be controlled by fluctuations. Your progress will be inconsistent. Your confidence will be unstable. You will build momentum, then lose it. Start strong, then fade. Commit loudly, then disappear quietly. That pattern destroys self-trust. Every broken promise weakens identity. Every skipped commitment lowers standards. Every excuse repeated becomes a habit. That is how mediocrity becomes normal. Ruthless self-discipline begins with daily non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are actions that happen regardless of circumstance. They are not optional. They are not flexible. They are not mood-dependent. They are fixed. You choose a small set of behaviors that represent the person you are becoming. You execute them daily. No debate. No delay. No emotion attached. It may be physical training. It may be focused work. It may be skill development. It may be strategic planning. The specific action matters less than the consistency. Consistency builds identity. When you execute non-negotiables daily, something shifts internally. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to expect effort from yourself. You begin to see yourself as disciplined. That is powerful. Weak individuals seek intensity. They want extreme bursts of effort. They push hard for a few days, then collapse. They rely on motivation spikes. Strong individuals seek repetition. They value consistency over intensity. They understand that discipline compounds quietly. They build strength through steady execution. Intensity fades. Standards remain. Delayed gratification is the foundation of discipline. It is the decision to endure discomfort now for strength later. It is the refusal to choose immediate relief over long-term growth. Weak individuals choose comfort today and regret tomorrow. Strong individuals endure today and dominate tomorrow. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen willpower. Willpower behaves like a muscle. It grows through use. It weakens through neglect. If you constantly choose ease, your willpower deteriorates. If you repeatedly choose effort, your willpower expands. That expansion changes how you see yourself. You begin to expect more. You tolerate more. You accomplish more. Ruthless self-discipline also means keeping promises to yourself. When you say you will do something, you do it. No adjustment and no reinterpretation, no quiet excuse. Your word to yourself must become law. If your own commitments are negotiable, your identity is unstable. If your word is flexible, your confidence is fragile. If you cannot trust yourself, nothing external will compensate. Strong individuals protect their internal credibility. They guard it. They build it. They reinforce it daily. When you say you will act, you act. That becomes who you are. There will be days when energy is low. There will be days when stress is high. There will be days when motivation disappears completely. That is when discipline matters most. Anyone can execute when conditions are ideal. Only the disciplined execute when conditions are imperfect. That is the test. On those difficult days, you reduce complexity. You remove excuses. You complete the non-negotiable at minimum acceptable standard. You do not skip. You do not disappear. You show up. Showing up builds power. Each repetition strengthens identity. Each repetition deepens resilience. Each repetition removes emotional dependency. You are not trying to feel powerful. You are building power through action. Weak individuals ask, "Do I feel like it?" Strong individuals state, "It gets done." That is ruthless self-discipline. It is calm. It is consistent. It is controlled. No drama, no excuses, no dependency on mood. You execute because you decided. You persist because it is your standard. You endure because that is who you are becoming. Repetition builds mastery. Daily standards build identity. Discipline builds freedom. When you are disciplined, you are not controlled by impulses. You are not distracted by every temptation. You are not derailed by minor discomfort. You move steadily. You progress continuously. You expand relentlessly. That is what strong people do. That is how winners think. That becomes who you are. Build ruthless self-discipline. Set the standard. Protect the standard. Repeat the standard. No compromise, no retreat, no negotiation. Discipline is trained, not born. Train it. Every day. Chapter 13. Execute imperfectly and move fast. Perfectionism is disguised procrastination. It looks disciplined. It sounds intelligent. It feels responsible. But it is fear wearing the mask of high standards. The truth is simple. If you wait until everything is perfect, you will wait forever. If you demand certainty before action, you will never move. If you insist on flawless execution before starting, you are choosing delay. Weak individuals hide behind preparation. They plan endlessly. They organize endlessly. They adjust endlessly. They convince themselves that one more improvement is necessary before beginning. Strong individuals begin before they feel ready. They refine while moving. They adjust in motion. They understand that clarity is created through execution, not contemplation. Most people overestimate the cost of mistakes and underestimate the cost of delay. They fear looking foolish. They fear criticism. They fear imperfection being exposed. So they stall. But stagnation is more damaging than error. Inaction erodes confidence faster than failure ever could. When you delay repeatedly, you train your mind to hesitate. You build the identity of someone who almost starts. That identity is dangerous. When you execute imperfectly, you send a different signal. You teach your brain that action matters more than appearance. You prove that progress is more important than validation. You show yourself that you are capable of movement under uncertainty. Mistakes are feedback. Delay is decay. Weak people try to eliminate risk. Strong people manage it through repetition. Weak people aim for flawless results. Strong people aim for consistent output. That is the difference. If you do not break perfectionism, it will paralyze you at every level of growth. As your goals become larger, your fear of imperfection will increase. You will raise the bar so high that starting feels overwhelming. You will convince yourself that you need more skill, more knowledge, more time. And while you prepare endlessly, others will execute imperfectly and advance. Speed builds confidence. When you act quickly, you shorten the window for doubt. You deny fear the time it needs to expand. You reduce overthinking. You build momentum. Action creates information. Information creates adjustment. Adjustment creates improvement. Execution teaches more than theory ever will. You must adopt one standard: move first, refine second. Do not wait to feel confident. Confidence grows after repetition. Do not wait to eliminate uncertainty. Uncertainty fades after exposure. Do not wait for flawless conditions. Conditions rarely align perfectly. Begin. Then improve. This does not mean reckless action. It means decisive action. It means you accept that the first version will not be perfect. It means you allow progress to be messy. It means you prioritize completion over appearance. Completion builds power. Every time you finish something imperfectly, you reinforce identity. You prove that you are someone who follows through. You create internal trust. You build resilience against criticism. You detach from external approval. Strong individuals understand that output compounds. One imperfect action today becomes experience. Experience becomes competence. Competence becomes confidence. Confidence becomes authority. It starts with movement. Set clear execution standards. Define what done means before you begin. Not flawless. Not extraordinary. Done. When the standard is met, you complete it. You move to the next task. You do not linger. You do not obsess. That discipline prevents perfectionism from taking control. Speed is not chaos. Speed is clarity. It forces decision. It eliminates hesitation. It demands focus. It trains the mind to act under pressure. Weak people overthink. Strong people execute. Weak people wait for inspiration. Strong people create momentum. Weak people fear mistakes. Strong people use them. That is the separation. If you want to force yourself to take action, you must become comfortable with imperfection. You must detach your self-worth from performance. You must value consistency over brilliance. Brilliance without consistency is irrelevant. Consistency without brilliance still wins. You are not building a perfect life. You are building disciplined execution. You are training yourself to move regardless of emotional noise, external opinion, or internal doubt. That becomes who you are. When hesitation appears, you do not ask whether it will be flawless. You ask whether it meets the standard for completion. If it does, you execute. If it does not, you adjust quickly and execute anyway. Done beats perfect. Finished beats flawless. Movement beats hesitation. Repetition builds mastery. And mastery never begins with perfection. It begins with imperfect action repeated daily. That is how winners think. That is how strong people operate. That is how progress is built. Execute now. Chapter 14. Build momentum that carries you. Momentum is earned. It is not given. It is not accidental. Momentum is the reward for repeated action without interruption. Most people rely on bursts of intensity. They wait for motivation. They move hard for a few days. Then they disappear. They start strong. Then they fade. They confuse excitement with commitment. That is why they stay average. Strong individuals do not chase intensity. They build continuity. They move daily. They execute whether the day feels powerful or ordinary. They understand that small actions repeated consistently create force. Weak individuals restart. Strong individuals continue. The difference is momentum. Momentum makes action easier. It reduces friction. It removes hesitation. When you have momentum, starting no longer feels heavy. It becomes automatic. It becomes expected. It becomes standard. But momentum is fragile in the beginning. Miss one day. It feels harmless. Miss 2 days. Resistance grows. Miss 3 days. Identity weakens. This is how progress collapses. Not through failure. Through inconsistency. You must protect momentum aggressively. The disciplined mind understands the compound effect of action. 1 workout changes nothing. 50 workouts change everything. 1 focused hour builds nothing. Hundreds of focused hours build mastery. 1 disciplined choice seems small. Years of disciplined choices reshape identity. Compounding does not announce itself. It builds quietly. It builds invisibly. It builds beneath the surface. And then one day, the results appear. Weak individuals demand immediate proof. Strong individuals trust repetition. If you do not respect compounding, you will quit too early. You will judge progress too soon. You will underestimate the power of daily execution. Momentum requires tracking. Not obsessively. Not emotionally. But deliberately. Track your actions. Track your consistency. Track your standards. Do not track feelings. Do not track motivation. Track execution. When you see evidence of consistency, confidence rises. When confidence rises, resistance weakens. When resistance weakens, action becomes easier. This is a cycle. Action creates progress. Progress creates belief. Belief fuels more action. That is momentum. Weak individuals break the cycle. They skip days. They excuse themselves. They let emotion dictate consistency. Each break resets the cycle. Each reset demands more effort. Each restart feels heavier than the last. Strong individuals protect the streak. They show up even when they can only perform at 70%. They show up even when energy is low. They show up even when life is busy. They reduce intensity if necessary, but they never reduce commitment. Consistency over intensity. That is how momentum survives. Do not aim for perfect days. Aim for unbroken days. Do not demand extraordinary performance. Demand daily execution. Even minimal action keeps the engine running. Even small effort protects identity. Even short work sessions maintain continuity. The goal is not exhaustion. The goal is rhythm. Rhythm removes resistance. Rhythm eliminates decision fatigue. Rhythm trains the mind to expect action at a certain time, in a certain way, without negotiation. That becomes your baseline. Weak individuals celebrate motivation. Strong individuals celebrate discipline. Weak individuals need inspiration. Strong individuals rely on structure. Weak individuals depend on emotion. Strong individuals depend on repetition. That is the difference. Momentum eventually reaches a tipping point. After enough consistent action, the behavior becomes part of you. You no longer debate whether to act. You no longer hesitate before starting. You no longer require internal persuasion. You execute because that is who you are. That becomes identity. And once identity aligns with action, stopping feels unnatural. Breaking the streak feels uncomfortable. Missing execution feels wrong. This is the shift. You are no longer forcing yourself to act. You are protecting who you have become. Momentum transforms discipline into instinct. But understand this clearly, momentum can work against you as well. If you build momentum in distraction, distraction becomes easier. If you build momentum in avoidance, avoidance becomes automatic. If you build momentum in excuses, excuses become identity. Everything compounds. So choose your direction carefully. Every day you either strengthen the disciplined version of yourself or reinforce the weaker version. There is no neutral. There is no pause. There is no standing still. You are always building momentum in something. Choose to build it in execution. Protect your streak. Guard your standards. Show up daily. Even when tired. Even when bored. Even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. That is how winners think. That is how strong people operate. They understand that greatness is not explosive. It is cumulative. It is quiet. It is repetitive. It is relentless. Momentum makes action automatic. Automatic action builds identity. Identity sustains discipline. And discipline creates freedom. So stop chasing dramatic breakthroughs. Start building daily proof. Show up today. Show up tomorrow. Show up again. Do not break the chain, do not interrupt the rhythm, do not sabotage your own momentum. Build it. Protect it. Strengthen it. That is how you carry yourself forward without force. That is how execution becomes natural. That is how you become unstoppable. Continue. Chapter 15. Live the Action Taker's Code. Action is not an event. It is a code. A personal law. A private standard. A non-negotiable identity. Most people treat action like a temporary burst. They act when inspired. They act when pressured. They act when watched. Then they drift. They cool down. They return to comfort. Disciplined individuals do not operate in bursts. They operate by code. A code does not depend on emotion. A code does not depend on applause. A code does not depend on results. It depends on identity. Weak minds ask, do I feel like it? Strong minds ask, who am I? That question changes everything. When action becomes your code, hesitation fades. You stop debating with yourself. You stop measuring your mood. You stop adjusting your standards based on convenience. You execute because that is who you are. Most people outsource responsibility. They blame timing. They blame circumstances. They blame stress. They blame distraction. They blame environment. Strong individuals accept one principle: everything in my control is my responsibility. Not everything is your fault. But everything within your reach is your responsibility. That mindset removes excuses. When something is unfinished, you finish it. When something is difficult, you confront it. When something is uncertain, you move anyway. Relentless execution is not aggression. It is consistency without emotional collapse. Relentless execution means you show up on ordinary days. You show up when progress is slow. You show up when results are invisible. You show up when no one notices. That is power. Because most people disappear when recognition disappears. Your daily action ritual becomes your anchor. You wake up. You execute your non-negotiables. You control your environment. You move before distraction can form. You finish what you start. Not occasionally. Daily. That repetition builds self-trust. Self-trust builds confidence. Confidence builds speed. Speed builds momentum. Momentum builds dominance. This is not about intensity. It is about permanence. Weak individuals search for balance before they build discipline. Strong individuals build discipline first. Balance follows. You do not wait for motivation. You do not wait for permission. You do not wait for the right season. You decide. Then you act. The action taker's code is simple. If it must be done, it gets done. If it is uncomfortable, it is necessary. If it builds growth, it becomes priority. No drama. No overthinking. No negotiation. When pressure rises, you tighten your standards. When fatigue appears, you protect your routines. When doubt surfaces, you increase repetition. That is how you remain unstoppable. Unstoppable does not mean perfect. It means persistent. You will face setbacks. You will face slow progress. You will face resistance in new forms. But the code does not change. You return to action. You return to discipline. You return to control. Over and over. Until it becomes automatic. That becomes who you are. Strong people do not hope for breakthroughs. They build them. Strong people do not wait for clarity. They create it. Strong people do not chase validation. They chase standards. That is the difference. Action is your language. Execution is your habit. Discipline is your identity. You are no longer someone trying to change. You are someone who moves. You are someone who finishes. You are someone who decides and follows through. That is the transformation. Live by the code. Act daily. Execute relentlessly. Refuse emotional excuses. Protect your standards. Because action is not something you do. It is who you are. You have been challenged. You have been pressed. You have been confronted. Now the question is simple. Will you return to comfort, or will you live by what you just committed to? This is not about temporary motivation. It is about permanent identity. You now understand that waiting weakens you. Negotiating weakens you. Emotional obedience weakens you. And decisive action strengthens you. The world does not reward intention. It rewards execution. From this moment forward, you operate differently. You wake up with standards. You move before hesitation forms. You finish what you start. You act whether you feel ready or not. Because feelings are temporary. Standards are permanent. You are building mental strength through repetition. You are building discipline through consistency. You are building self-mastery through action. Day by day. Decision by decision. Execution by execution. That is how identity changes. Do not treat this as content consumed. Treat this as a contract signed. You do not need more information. You need more execution. You do not need more inspiration. You need more repetition. You now carry the code. Live it. And if this conditioning strengthened you, if this pressure challenged you, if this standard raised you, then commit fully. Support the mission. Like this audiobook. Subscribe to this channel. Return regularly. Condition your mind repeatedly. Strengthen your identity continuously. Because strong minds are built through repetition. And you are no longer building a goal. You are building yourself. Now execute.